So constructive listening. So we know that the client does not have to go back and retell their whole story. We don't need all the information about the problem of the story. We don't need to know who said what and why they said it and all of that childhood trauma. Rather, it's to draw out your client's achievements. So if your client is suffering from depression, we're not going to ask you, why are you depressed? We're not going to ask you, how long have you been depressed? We're going to ask you, given how sad you have been feeling lately and not being able to get out of bed on some days, how did you manage to still make it to this appointment today? How did you manage to get out of bed, brush your teeth, have a shower, get dressed, get into your car, and still be sitting in front of me today? We in that same breath, we're complimenting our client because he or she cannot see anything hopeful about their situation. And sometimes in grief therapy, just taking their first breath is an achievement. Just breathing. As opposed to say, why are you sad? Why can you not get out of bed? Who makes you sad? What makes you sad? So we're listening to the same story, but with a different ear. We're listening with solution-focused grief therapy ears, which is a very different ear. And because I've been practicing this for a while, when someone comes to me with the problem, my mind already begins to see and hear solutions that they have not. So we're always just one question. You're always just one question away from helping your client find a solution. Just trying to go to the next slide. Oh, guys, the PowerPoint is gone.
Do you want to share your screen again, Darren?
Yeah, the PowerPoint has disappeared. I'm looking for it now. Perhaps as I'm looking for it, is there any thoughts that you just want to discuss? Anything that has stood out for you, that has been of interest to you, that you didn't know before, that you find exciting, that you find, oh, that doesn't really sit well with me? As I pull this up.
Taryn, I had watched a video on YouTube with a guy who did it on a guy who was very, like you said, black and white thinking about his smoking and being able to stop smoking. And he did a very interesting thing. He said to him, well, do you smoke when you sleep?
Yes.
And the guy was like, oh, actually, no, I don't, obviously. So that's the time when you're not sleeping. Can you think of any other times when you're not smoking? And he's like, actually, yeah, it's when I swim, when I go swimming. I don't feel the need to smoke before or even after because I feel so relaxed. Yes. It's just, there you go. So it's just reframing the thinking of that black and white thinking. So cool.
Yes, indeed. And asking them those questions that they don't think about, because many people are just going through this life in autopilot. It's so busy. We're not asking ourselves those questions. Okay, so when do I not smoke? It's just an automatic thing, which makes meditation very, very important. Being able to pause in our busyness.
Karen?
Yes. Can you see my
find this
screen?
Yes, I can.
Go
I
ahead.
find this a really difficult tool because I think because I'm schooled in being critical, and critical means looking for problems rather than looking for solutions.
Yes, and you, yeah. Go ahead.
Then
sorry.
also, like, I'm just thinking a whole way that so when you said you don't worry about how long they've been depressed, all of that stuff. But in reality, the way we've been trained is to ask for a history and go into that. So how does this fit with that? Of course, it's a tool that you can use at a later stage but you cannot do this in the intake session because, well, I don't know, because we need to get this information to write on our progress notes. Well, so
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where it's kind of a little bit of
dilemma for you.
Incongruence coming up for me. Yeah.
So firstly, you're right. Yes, we programmed to sit in this basket of looking at the problem. This is the problem, and we sit there and we have a party. So it does take. We've got to now reframe that muscle, that solution-focused brain, and retrain it. Because if you look at your own life, the knee-jerk reaction is to focus on that problem. And so it is about just retraining. I'm going to tell you a secret, is Geraldine listening, what I do. And there's something called the integrated approach, right? Where you draw from different approaches. So for me, if I'm sitting in the basket of solution-focused brief therapy, I still, just for my own peace of mind, because I'm someone I need to know a little bit more, I would still do a basic intake. It might not be as in-depth as psychological, but I still do a basic. I do, before deciding on which therapeutic approach I'm going to, because you can't decide in the first session really, I think, is I still do a basic intake. I don't know if Geraldine, you have any thoughts on that?
Sorry.
Or were you not listening?
No, I was listening. You were wanting to know if I was listening to you.
No.
I do. I think that the intake form, I often use the intake form to say that I'm gathering some information that I might need, but that would actually, sometimes I even say we'd start the actual counseling process, more of the actual counseling the next session. But sometimes the actual form, if you send it out before the time, will give you a lot of the basic history that you need. Right. For paper trail purposes and for session note purposes. But I've also started my counseling sessions in a very solution focused way, and I don't necessarily, I get the background information in a different way.
Okay, yes. So I think that's a good idea, because I found it gets very intense if I do that intake in the actual session. Sending a little form off ahead of time might make it lighter in that first session. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the pre-session chain is often overlooked, and I think it's a very, very powerful tool, especially if you're nervous, because it's that lovely entrance door into how to start a session, where you asking your client when they make the appointment over email or phone, to ask him to notice what are some of the positive differences that you noticed since the time that you made the appointment to now that you are seeing me. And it's what's called one of the greatest secrets of Sfbt, because somehow when we make that appointment, I used to wear braces and it was always in a terrible shape. But once I knew an appointment was made, I suddenly used to not eat the toffees, and I suddenly used to really take care of my braces. So that commitment ignites in your client a new way of thinking. And so change can, if we take the time to use the pre-session change, we can already see that change could have happened before that very first session. And so, okay, that's what's working. Let's do more of that. How many of you have used the pre-session change? tool. I find that when my students do the assessment, sometimes they miss the pre-session change because they don't think it's as important as the other tools. But I think it's a very, very powerful tool that we shouldn't skip. So you're going to do role play later with Geraldine. So like a question would be, your therapist would say, please, what changes have happened since you decided to make the appointment? Well, I've actually been watching less of my favorite series and I managed to get 2 assessments in on time. Wow. So what else is happening as well as finishing your assignment? Well, I started exercising again. And at this stage, your client's giving you 2 things. They're telling you what has worked for them, so they must do more of that. And they're also telling you that they have the ability, they actually have the resources. They actually have a plan of action that can already be tapped in before you start that first session. So why do you not want to ask your client what brings you here? Why do we not want to ask that question?
Focuses them on the problem.
Yes, focuses them on the problem. Yep. And we don't want to do that in solution focused. What brings you here? And it also kind of gives them the power to go down that problem focused narrative. Because that's where people comfortably sit. They comfortably sit in talking about the problem because you want to be meeting the person. You are assuming that irrespective of what has brought your client to therapy, is this person already comes with resources, with abilities, with skills. You want to be able to ask your client. I often start with things outside of what has brought them there. You know, show an interest in your client outside of the problem. I found this very powerful when I did my field work with the Havakwa inmates in prison, because we walk in with our preconceived idea that this is a prisoner, but we forget that he has a dream, he has a purpose, he has ideas and resources and innate abilities outside of that, which has resulted in him being in prison. And that's what you want to uncover. So the solution focused language, how we construct that, is very powerful. How will you know that coming to see me here has been helpful? I often use that because that directs us directly to your goal. Well, I know that if I achieve 1, 2, 3, it's really been helpful. How will you know that coming to see Taryn today has not been a complete waste of your time? What would you like to change? Can we discover solutions? Are there times when the problem is happening less? What will your future look like? So goal setting questions, very, very powerful tool. This is, you want to be starting after your pre-session change. This is the next question that you want to be starting with because it sets the foundation. We don't know where we're going to go if we don't know what our client wants to achieve. So these goals have to be smart. They have to be very specific. It has to be clear. It cannot be unambiguous. It has to be important to the client. It must not be important to you. Remember, it's your client's goals. You might sit there and think, oh, I think but perhaps you should work on this. It has to be something that shifts your client to that future. It has to be measurable. So there's got to be a very
specific.
Yeah?
We can't see the screen. It's only green on our side.
It says I'm screen sharing.
Oh, it's only like a green block in front of us.
And Gabby had a question in the chat.
Should Sfbt be used in trauma containment? Yes, Sfbt can absolutely be used within a trauma situation, because that's when you want to you want to really calm that person down in that moment. So yes, I'm not very averse in trauma and Sfbt, but Sfbt can absolutely be used in a trauma situation. Can you still not see my screen?
You did something that took it away partially, so we can see the top of the slide, but not the bottom, like, fourth of it. So I don't know if there's something on your side that's maybe in front of it.
No, it doesn't show anything.
It's fine, we can see most of it. There we go. It's open.
Okay,
now.
I just reopened it. It. Okay, so very important for a goal is there has to be an action. A goal is not something that is passive, and that goal has to be achievable and realistic. So no, you cannot lose 100 kilograms by the end of the week. But what's the tiniest step that you can take to get there? And it has to be time-based. So every week we come back and we see, okay, how much closer are you to that goal? Why do you think people struggle to answer goal setting questions? Have you found that? And I find that my students ask one goal setting question and they stop there.
Karen?
Yes?
The screen's green again. That's better. Now we can see things.
That's weird. I did absolutely nothing. I did a click on the top. Why do you think people struggle to ask a goal setting question, or may struggle to ask a goal setting question, to answer a goal setting question, would you say? And I put the word vulnerability there.
Taryn, it's Heather. I was going to say that perhaps, yeah, when people, I'm just thinking in particular of, say, someone that's very depressed or something like that, the moment they set a goal, it's like they have to commit to something, or it's something that they've got to reveal, or, that they then feel they may have to stick to. Sometimes it is more comfortable
Absolutely.
not to have something, or if it's weight loss or exercise or any of those things. The moment you put a goal there, it has a whole different meaning to it.
Right. It's the moment you verbalize it to a friend, suddenly there's a level of accountability and a level of commitment. Oh, so-and-so knows about it, But also when we really tell people what we want, think of yourself when you really tell someone what you want, has the response always been positive? Because when we talk about what we want, we're opening ourselves up to disappointment, to vulnerability. We're putting ourselves out there. Because for many, it's been a while since they've been able to honestly say, this is what I really want. I'd really love a hug from my husband. I'd really love for him to say that I love you. Can you see how that can open someone up to the pain of expectation? But also, do I trust my therapist with my innermost dreams? Do I trust him or her? And so in a sense, the building of trust becomes really, really important, because in a sense, we have, as practitioners, have to really earn the right, I think, to listen to the goals and the hopes and the dreams of others. It's a very, very, very sacred space. And just remember that when your client is struggling to express a goal, we don't know the history where someone might have said, oh, you stupid, you can never achieve that. You don't have what it takes. No, it can't happen because of the pandemic. So just be aware of that. And then the examples of goal setting questions. What are your best hopes? How will you know that coming to see me has been useful? And you can read through all of that. So the purpose of goal setting, again, is to focus your client on what they want to work towards. And that answers the core question. That becomes the very foundation on what you're working on. That becomes the foundation for your scaling questions. So what do you want?
Screenogram.
And how will you know now? And it creates a sense of hope and possibility. And so remember, the client is the expert in their own lives. You just guiding them through these amazing Sfbt tools. I don't think I have much longer. I think I'm going over time as well. So the great instead, that's what SFBT is. It is, you've come here, this is what you have, but what do you want instead? And if you forget all the tools you've learned, remember this one. What do you want instead? When your friend comes and complains, well, what do you want instead?
Taryn, sorry, Heather here again. I just wanted to ask you, what do you do with a client, say, who does have pathology, say they've got bipolar disorder or are schizophrenic or something, but they are, so it's out of our scope of practice, but
Yes.
they are medicated and stable and have been referred for counseling, say, to work on whatever, relationship problems or whatever. So if you ask someone like that, what do you want instead? And they turn around and say, well, I want to not be bipolar anymore. You know, it makes me quite afraid to use this particular method with, you know, with people that are, often just thinking people that are,
Yes.
So anyway.
And with that, we'd also have to ask then, would that be a realistic goal for that individual?
Oh, scary.
And I think that's why assessment is so important, because I know that with pathology, you can use SFBT as a supplement, you know, but it can't be the only thing that you use. And again, for me, my assessment is always about, am I the right helper for you? You know, or do I need to refer you?
It's a difficult.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. It's a difficult space, because I think that you know, I don't know about some of the other students, but on our practicum, sometimes there are people with problems that are obviously outside of our scope, but at the same time, that's where we sit.
And what are you meant to do with people who are outside of your scope ethically?
Well, they are referred, but sometimes you don't know. I mean, I had a client and we didn't know that that's what their problem was. So you still have them there in front of you for some of the time.
And are you not meant to refer?
Yes, they do get referred, but in that moment, you don't know. Sometimes they haven't revealed on their intake form that there is pathology there. So you carrying along merely thinking you're dealing with, I don't know, you know, a marriage problem, and the next minute it's something completely different.
Which is only revealed later in the session.
Yeah.
Very, very tricky. One of my lecturers.
Can I mention something?
Sorry?
Can I mention something?
Sure.
I was just thinking, wouldn't it be possible to say, gosh, you must feel hopeless sometimes, stuck with this problem or whatever. What are some of the things you can change? What is in your power?
Yes, I love that, because then it brings it back to what's realistic for you.
In the relationships that she's in, or he, or whatever, what are the things that can be improved? And I don't know.
Absolutely. Okay, some of my slides I just don't know.
I just want to add to that as well, that with bereavement therapy, for example, or bereavement counseling, I'm giving myself a clap, I'm not so allowed to say therapy, but there is actually, you can't say to them, what is your best hopes or your miracle question, because obviously in bereavement, they're going to say, I want my loved one back. And it's not realistic. So what you say is you phrase it differently. You say, what's your best hopes for our sessions together? What can we work on together to help you navigate this bereavement? Not what is your best hopes or full stop, or Yeah, so it's being sensitive in how you phrase it and how that might be answered.
And that's why we need to be so skilled that we don't just pull out the tool and throw it at them, you know, that we know, okay, this is the tool that they need now, how the coping question for grief particularly. I've skipped over some of the slides because they're self-explanatory for time purposes. But what is your biggest fear as you go into all of this right now? Would you say? Just maybe one person.
It's just having the skills on hand, and because we like, I know them, you know, this all feels like revision, but actually having the confidence in the moment to navigate it skillfully with another person in front of me. Yeah, that's where I just don't feel confident.
And the only way is that Janda, the only way confidence really comes is by just keep engaging in solution-focused talk, even in your social settings. If an issue comes up, it's really about practice. I mean, these slides they don't give you the confidence. You've got to go out and practice. So you've got to know, how never to get stuck in a Sfbt session is you've got to know your Sfbt language and the skills so well that your client can't give you a wrong answer. I mean, if Geraldine's still listening, when I was in field work, I already gave the client an answer because it wasn't they gave me an answer I didn't want, so I just ran with my own idea. So we set ourselves up when we expect a certain answer. But what if your client gives you, I've pulled up the wrong slides. What if your client says, I don't want to be here? That's off script. What do you do now? What if your client says, I don't want to be here? And you go, oh my word, that's not the answer I was expecting. Well, what could you ask? You could say, well, where would you rather be? And what would you need to do in order not to come and see me again? So trust those skills and trust your ability to ask another question. You've got to get out of your head. If all else fails and you remember nothing, remember these three questions. What do you want? How will you know if you achieved it? And what do you need to get there? Seligman says it's a dance. It really is. You not leading, your client is leading by what they're saying. You following by just asking the right question for whatever they've said. But in order to do this tango, you've got to know your steps. You've got to know your solution-focused brief steps. And so I'd encourage you to do this homework exercise, which is do a first interview with someone who feels comfortable with you and that you are comfortable with. Not a pathology issue, something about time management, communication, weight loss, something more, just more relaxed. And ask them, apply 5 of the Sfbt skills, include goal setting, and then also incorporate some of your counseling skills, your empathy. Because it is practice that's going to make, not perfect. I don't believe they are perfect practitioners, but practice is going to make progress. And then apply in your own life. Reflect on that area that you consider a success. If it's not broken, then don't fix it. So that you can see, well, what is it in someone else's life that's a success? Well, then don't fix it. Don't mess with it. It's working. What's working in your life already, do more of it. And what's not working, do something different. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, can you maybe just go back to those basic questions again? We just want to write those down, the three basic questions, if you don't mind.
I absolutely don't mind. I really apologize profusely for what I don't even know is happening here today. It is being recorded, so I shall send this to you.
Great, thank you.
If you've got a teenager and they have a problem, well, what do you want instead? And how will you know if you got there? What can you do to get there? If only we could only use these 3 questions.
Taryn, so are these are the 3 steps, the SFBT steps, basically?
Yes, those are the 3 basic questions that form the foundation. Those skills meet each of these steps. So the preferred future, the goal setting. Are you guys practicing SFBT in your practicals right now?
I haven't had any clients yet.
Okay. Can I be honest with you? Out of all the therapeutic approaches that I know, I feel most comfortable going into a session with this. I wish I had this when I was doing my field work. We didn't. We had CBT and psychodynamic and all those overwhelming ones.
Can I just say that this links in really well with narrative therapy, which is what I love to use. It just links in so beautifully because it is so hope focused and rewriting your story and looking towards the future. And for anyone who's doing like almost spiritual counseling as well, it's just a lovely.
It absolutely is. Whoever's speaking right now, a student of mine, and I must wrap up. She did a presentation and she linked every single question to a biblical text. She integrated it with her faith because it's about hope. It's about hope.
Yeah, exactly. That's gorgeous.
I really hope, despite all of the technical challenges, that you've left with something of value. I will upload this onto YouTube and then email this to you. I know that Geraldine's going to practice skills with you now.
Bianca's just asking how many sessions is there normally in SFBT?
Okay, so with SFBT, Elliot Connie says you can be done in one session. So there isn't really any specific set. What your guiding yardstick is as your clients reach those goals. So that's why you need to keep checking in with scaling. So your goal is your end is, well, has my client reached his or her goals? And there is a SFBT termination session. I have a reading somewhere that with very specific questions. And that's why it's important to say, how will you know when you no longer need to come and see me anymore?
Taryn?
Yes.
Just another question quickly. I'm just thinking, say, for example, you're working with a person that's, that's maybe depressed, and one of the goals would be, okay, I'm going to start exercising. So they put that on as a short-term goal, and then you agree that you're going to check in, say, in a week or 2 weeks. With the person has started exercising, and what do you do if
they haven't?
They haven't. They were and then they come up with excuses, no, this or that, and they haven't actually committed to that goal.
What do you think you do? What would we do? Anybody? What is one of the counseling skills we would use firstly? We would not judge, yes.
Yeah, empathy,
compassion. We would revisit goals, and we would revisit preferred future. Okay. So that we just continue instilling hope and excitement to get there. What will be different when you are exercising that's not happening now? But I think I would practice a great amount of empathy and unconditional positive regard, hold them in that space, and then revisit what they want, how they can achieve, and just keep going over that, but in a very empathic way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think I'm still on, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your empathy in the technical issues. And I wish you all of the best, and just trust that you have been called to be a helper. Trust that.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.